Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode 73 in an ongoing series of weekly live broadcasts that are designed for folk with a growth mindset or those who'd like to develop one. It's the opportunity for folk to play with new ideas, new concepts, and try on new mindsets. All right, so welcome. Here's what we get to play with today. And while I'm pulling up that image, please do me a favor. Look right below here, right below the video, and click share and invite your friends, your colleagues, your community to join the conversation. More voices in the conversation, the more ideas we get to play with. So here's the concept we get to play with today. It's a quote by Gilbert Keith Chesterton, known as the Prince of Paradox. So clearly, I'm now a fan. How you think when you lose determines how long it will be until you win. G.C. Chesterton had a singular wit, and this is one of his least biting quotes, but it's, I think, a brilliantly, again, you hear me say this a lot, a brilliantly simple idea. This is about energy, right? And this is about the energy with which you decode experiences and the energy with which you choose to act. Are you in reaction or are you in response? So, left to my own devices without higher thinking, my default reaction, right? Instead of response, my default reaction used to be anger, sadness, to externalize the blame, and sadly, usually with those closest to me, to lash out in response to losing, right? Not an ideal set of reactions. And I caught myself making it when I first heard this quote. I caught myself very, very quickly defending those ego-based reactions, those self-focused and base responses to a loss. I made it okay to make it all about me, but in the wrong way, all about me in terms of I was wounded, or I'm pissed, or I'm upset. It was all reaction. It was all below the neck visceral. How you think when you lose determines how long it will be until you win. So focusing on the loss, externalizing the blame, wallowing in the impact of that setback is all reactive. Those reactions merely suck the energy out of what could be used to shift the next outcome in a positive direction. Those of you who watch these episodes regularly know that I hold the belief that we're all leaders. Our first responsibility is to lead ourselves. So I always look at these quotes in this playground through the lens of leadership. And as leaders, we're called on to respond, not react, to have intelligent, well felt out, well thought out responses instead of the animalistic, ego-based reactions that we tend towards as the animals that we are, right? So in responding, we get to act with intention, to expend our energy towards something that moves us forward, to be intentional, right? The perfect starting point for any loss is not to gather up the team and start blame throwing, right? It's to look at that first question, come from a place of ownership and strength. What part of the problem am I? Right? Before you start looking all around you and pointing fingers at the system and at the team and the other people involved, to look for the fault, the breakdown, the failure point. Always start with what part of the problem am I? Once you're willing to name and own and address those elements, then you have a better standing to begin to look at what other systemic elements, what other external elements are there that have led to the loss. So that very first step is to stop the blame throwing and start looking at assessing. First question of leadership, what part of the problem am I? right? When we demonstrate that willingness to look inward, that's the only time that we find the answers that are needed to change our outcomes. I go back to a lesson I learned in sales a bajillion years ago. The best time to make a sales call or the next ask or the next proposal is immediately after you get a yes. And in opposition to this, quote, the idea that that's because the energy that you get from that yes, it, no matter how good we are in life or in sales or in any aspect of our world at not taking things personally, when you're in sales and you get a yes, dear God, yes, people take that personally, right? And yes, there are dangers in that too, and that's for another conversation. But the energy of that previous yes, that win, that close, infuses your next call or your next appointment, right? So then flip it. When you get twisted around the axle from a no, when somebody says no and or you lose to somebody else, you take that rejection. When you get twisted around the axle about that, when your energy gets wound up in negative, how you, I mean, go back to our quote, right? How you think when you lose determines how long it will be until you win. So when you get twisted around the axle by that rejection, the energy permeates your next interaction. If you go dark or negative or live or stay in that triggered space, that choice will merely lengthen the time before your next win by souring your energy. And this is really the key. It's we get to choose what informs our energy. Neil says it's still difficult for me to lose or fail. Well, Neil, welcome to being human, right? No matter how enlightened we are, nobody ever enjoys the failure. No matter how much learning we know that comes out of it, I get it, right? Still makes me angry at myself and hurts. But I try these days to decide that if it's something I can fix now, or should I just take the time and sit back and try to analyze what I can do and what I can learn from it? I mean, yeah, so Neil, first response was yes, thank you. Um, Sitting back and assessing and pausing and looking for what's the learning. And is on one hand, yes, what part of the problem am I? And turning inward and looking at self, but being objective and not presuming that it's all your fault, presuming that all of the elements that led to that loss, that fail, that face plant are yours. Yes, it's a good starting point, but then one has to be objective so that you're not taking blame that isn't yours, right? So, once we sit back and try to analyze what part of it is ours, how do you keep the thinking positive? How do you keep the narrative one that serves? How do you find that strength, the intention to respond by owning what you can change, taking action on it, and letting the rest of it go? Even when you take ownership and responsibility, there's still the goal of not taking it personally. Because I fail at X does not mean that I am a failure. Because I lost at something does not mean I'm a loser. These are outcomes of specific events, no matter how trivial or life critical. The outcome does not define you as a person. The outcome that I experience doesn't define my identity, right? I have a kid who's involved who's an actor, and I have another one who's a scientist. And in both of those cases, failure is woven into the fabric of their experience in their chosen path. What is science but a series of trial and error, a series of experiments, no matter how expertly planned and or executed Science is fraught with failure. We're currently working in a lab doing stem cell research for ALS. ALS has been an incurable disease for as long as we've had it named, identified and named, and yet there's still research being done on it endlessly and money being raised because failure after failure after failure, loss after loss after loss does not deter them. In order to be successful in film, television, stage, doesn't matter, anything that falls under the actor footprint, you hear no endlessly. And if one takes it personally and internalizes that fail as being a failure, there's no room to succeed. I just watched my youngest and his classmates go through the college acceptance or college application and acceptance process. Wow, it's like surviving high school and your reward is being beaten down by the process. And there's no way not to take it personally. Again, we have the opportunity to respond to situations where we lose, or for that matter, win, and take neither of them personally and take them as, be it a loss or a win, this is energy to move us forward. Energy from the win. It's easy to understand how to use that to move you forward. Energy from a loss, still energy. How do you turn that in favor of moving forward? You have so much opportunity to shift our experience by shifting the energy of how we experience the things around us. When we take it personally, we almost guarantee that we will slow our progress forward. I mean, early on in coaching, which was no different than early on in the web company that I co-founded, any no seemed to be a stab in the gut. No matter how excited I was or am about what I do, those early stages of any business, every no is a stab in the heart. I mean, especially when what you're trying to enroll clients in is something that you deliver. So even when Beth and I first started Digital Positions, when somebody said no, they were saying no to me or no to Beth. They weren't saying no to a website or no to our company doing it. They were saying no to me. It was very easy to take all of it personally. Then we capitalized on taking it personally when we got a yes. And that's still, I think, just as dangerous. It's celebrate the victories and don't take it personally. Unpack it and see what made it work. And so what the blank stare right now is, what's popping into my head is, how much now do I still take a win or a loss personally? My job as a coach is, it's all about the client's agenda and the client moving to their own sense of transformation. I supposed to have no attachment to what their transformation is. Yes, you'd be attached to the client finding their own shift, their own transformation, but it's theirs. It's by their definition. It's not what I think it should look like. So even when it's a client win, I can't take that personally either. So how much do I take it personally when I hear a no? How much does the energetic response that I have slow down the chance to the next win? Oh, so Ashley Newberg just shared something so rich. Thank you. So rich about community. Having coaches around me celebrating my losses with me makes it so much easier and more fun to really press into the uncomfortable and keep going. Ashley, thank you. Yes, because just that whole idea of having a community around you of shared experience is such a brilliant opportunity to point us in a better direction, towards our better angels. Right? Looking at our losses and holding our losses as just that, oops, it was a loss. It was a fail, but you're not a failure. And celebrating those as well. Ashley and I work with the same coach, Rich Litvin, and one of the things he talks about is, and I don't know if it's his quote originally or not, is yes lives in the land of no. Yeah, there are a lot of times where you have to hear no a whole lot of times before you get to a yes, because of all the rich learning that's available in that minefield of no. Um, so there was a sales trainer 25 years ago who used to say, every time somebody says no, say thank you. Two reasons. One is they volunteered to stop consuming your time. And two, it's one step closer to yes. So again, just embracing that idea that there is not everything is going to be a win, and letting the losses be just part of the steps to the next win. Right? Feeding into that idea of how you think when you lose determines how long it will be until you win. So what I want to offer is sort of the thought playground for this week is, how are you responding to the losses or the failures in your world? Right? Pay attention. Are you taking them personally and using them as a billy club to beat yourself up, or are you unpacking them and learning from them and using that to move you forward? You know? So for this week, lean into noticing your responses versus your reactions. And between now and next Monday, go to facebook.com/group/mindset Mondays. Join the conversation there. Have an opportunity to follow on the thread and share your experiences and your thoughts, and let other folks in that closed Facebook group share their thoughts as well. And between now and next Monday, what mindset will you choose?